What's up, everybody? Dr. Evil Genius here, representing the Talking Shit podcast. As always, I want to first apologize because it has been a little while since I have delivered content for you. Working on a lot of things behind the scenes to make my life better so that I can then make the show better. So, let's get into today's topic. Today's topic, we are going to be talking about credit scores and why credit scores are so important. Now, as a disclaimer, I think you need to understand that the federal government is looking to change a lot of how credit scores are handled in the United States, how they're scored, how certain people are scored, what parameters they're judging people based upon the scoring. They kind of want to take it out of the hands of the private companies. But we're going to talk about how it is today, and Dr. Evil is going to go over how Dr. Evil was able to get an 800 plus credit score. So this is something that people have been debating about a lot. There have been, some people who watch our channel that have been kind of saying, yeah, definitely put this out there. So I figured this would be very useful information. So let me start by letting you guys know that, not all that long ago, my credit was below 700. Why? I made a series of bad financial decisions. I ran up credit cards. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I ran up credit cards. I used the credit card as if it was already money that I earned that I hadn't earned yet. So I ended up maxing out credit cards. And what that does is it puts you in a really bad situation. Because if you have a credit card with a fairly high limit, you're going to end up paying a very high nominal amount of interest where your ability to cut down on the amount that you owe is severely inhibited. So to give you an example, I did run up one credit card that I had a $10,500 credit limit on. I ran that up to the max at one point, and the minimum payments were above $400, and less than half of that went to the principal. The principal is the amount of the actual dollars you owe that have nothing to do with the interest, because they're charging you interest and you pay a small part of the principal. You don't want to get caught just paying interest. So I was paying a whole lot more money for goods and services than they actually cost, because I looked at a $10,000 credit limit as $10,000 that belonged to me. And it made a lot of goods and services a lot more expensive than they needed to be. So how did I turn this around? Well, first, one of the things that I did was I took advantage of a debt consolidation loan from my bank, the same bank that I had the credit card in. So the credit card had an interest rate, an APR of, I think, 23.99%. So even the worst personal loans, if your credit is not really great, you're probably going to get a 12.99, 13.99, somewhere in the 15 range. So you're going to end up in a much more advantageous position as far as paying off that debt. But the biggest part is your own personal discipline. Can you look at a zero balance on a credit card and know that it doesn't mean that you should go on a shopping spree? Can you do that? Well, over a period of about 2.5 years, I set a goal. I had a very ambitious goal. I'm going to murder my credit card debt. I'm going to get it down to zero, and by hook or by crook, I'm going to get there. So how did I do this? Well, I looked at a lot of the things that I like to buy and I just simply didn't buy them. One of the biggest traps that we fall into is the the high value sale. Well, this is 50% off. This is 75% off. But uh, a wise person that I met in my travels once told me that if you do not buy a product, you get 100% off. So what I did was I said, look, I want to be able to afford financing or to be able to buy more expensive things in the future. I'm going to lay off buying the sneakers. I'm going to lay off buying the video games. I'm going to lay off buying a bunch of bullshit that I know that I didn't need. So here I am coming from, like a six. I think I got down to about 670, my credit score. And over time, what I did was I used what they call the snowball method. The snowball method is taking the balance, taking the credit line that you have the lowest balance on, and then working to wipe that out completely so that you can then take the money that you would have normally paid that bill with, add it to the minimum payments you're making on other credit lines, and then over time you're paying a lot more than just the interest and then a little bit of the principal. Now you're paying more principal than you are interest, and as time goes along, as you continue to pay more of the principal than the interest comes down precipitously. So I had, I think, five credit cards with balances on them. I had, like I said, I had a $10,500 card. I had an $8,000 card. I had another $8,000 card, a $4,500 card, I think, um, and a $300 card. So what I did was I made sure that I paid off the $300 card, and while I was in the process of paying off debts, I just didn't use the card. I didn't need to cut it up. I just needed to have the proper discipline that an adult is supposed to have. So when I was done with that credit line, I then moved on to the $4,500 credit line because I bought an expensive guitar. This is like a Guitar Center card. It's one of those store cards. So I bought like an expensive guitar and some stuff to clean it and take care of it, a case. I think I also used it for like drumming lessons and a guitar repair. Okay, so when I think I had like somewhere around like $1,500 on that card, I very faithfully month after month just continued to uh, pay off that amount, and then the amount that I would have needed to pay the $300 line and the $4,500 line, I would take that lump sum and then add it to the amount that I was paying on the next the next longest credit line, and so on and so forth, until I was able to tackle the heaviest credit line. And then, if they're asking for $350, I'm giving you 700. So a lot of people think, well, they're telling me that I owe this money, so I'm going to pay this money. Well, what if you took the money that you think that you're saving, because they put in a savings account, you're not going to get much of a return on that. The best return you can get is to lower the extra money you're paying in terms of interest. Okay? So for those people who have already kind of fucked up their credit a little bit, just understand that discipline is going to be the main source of your progress. Can you avoid looking at a low balance on a credit card as a license to purchase a bunch of shit you don't need? So it took me a while, but making every single payment, and we're going to talk about the different factors that go into your credit in a moment. Just making sure that I paid a lot of attention to uh, what my balances were and not looking at them as an excuse to spend a lot of money. One of the things that I wanted to give to you guys is the breakdown for how your scores are, um, how they're tabulated. So there are a lot of people that don't really understand the whole credit market, and there are some basic things, but then there also are some other really obscure things. Some of the things I actually learned quite recently. So, uh, first of all, you should know that both Vantage Score, which is what Experian and Equifax kind of base their stuff off, um, they're going to be using Vantage Score 3, and then soon they're going to be using Vantage Score 4. Okay. And FICO is the one that Experian runs its credit rating off. Okay. Um, but the way that they divvy up the pie, their algorithm, so to speak, of what factors they value the most is pretty much going to be the same. So, starting with your payment history, your payment history is going to be about 35% of how they tabulate your total credit score. What does that mean? That means that your on time payments and how consistently you make those on time payments, that is where that's going to go. So, well, how, what's a good, payment history? Well, you'll probably be dismayed to know that missing just one payment in a 30-day period, not only does it last several years on your credit report, but it will take your score down tremendously. We're talking about 75 to 150 points in one shot. So it's extremely important to make sure that you at least make the minimum payments every month. Don't mess around. Again, you could have a I think right now, I think I have like 305 months straight of on time payments across all of my credit lines. If I missed one, that will put me at greater than 99%. However, it would take down my credit score about 75 points, missing just one payment. So don't mess around with that, folks. Amount of debt. Big, big, big thing. So when they count this, they're not talking about a mortgage. They're not talking about student loans. They're not talking about a car lease or a car loan. They're talking about revolving lines of credit. We're talking about credit cards, because credit card is one of the biggest traps here in the United States. Like, our entire economy runs off of consumer debt. About, I think, 70% of our economy runs off consumer debt. In order for the economy to be healthy, they've pretty much figured that you are going to buy a bunch of shit that you don't need with money you haven't earned yet. Let that sink in. So they're going to set the trap for you, but you are going to be the one that decides whether or not you're going to fall into that trap. So 30% of your credit rating is going to be the amount of debt that you have. And what they mean by that is we're talking about balances that are left over month over month. So I'm going to kind of give you the denominations that they, the different percentage levels that they will assign, a bad, fair, good, great, whatever. If you're using over 50% of your total credit, and that means there's two separate total credits. One would be your total as far as all of your credit cards, your total amount, and they're also going to judge you on the total amount you're using on one card. Let me run through that again for you. When they're talking about total percentage of debt, they're talking about the total amount across all your credit cards. So that means if you have five $5,000 credit cards and you put $5,000 on one of those cards, they're going to be judging you on the fact that you're now using 20% of your total credit and then 100% of one card. So even though they want you to be at below 30% so they can give you, the 700 credit, what they really want to see is a kind of more of like an equal distribution. So if you wanted to adhere to good credit, which would be under 30% utilization, and let's take my example of 20% overall, instead of charging $5,000 to one card, if you charge $1,000 to each of the five cards, you will end up with the proper ratio overall rather than just blowing up one card and having a zero balance on the rest. So they will judge you on both. So even if you're under 30% on total, if you're over 50% on just one of those cards, you're going to get a ding for it. So keep that in mind. Below 30%, again, is what they look at as safe. Because if you're a person that's using a whole lot of their credit, then they believe that you probably are struggling financially. And then the chances that you're not going to pay off what you're supposed to pay off actually goes up. Because it's really what your credit score is, a risk assessment. How likely is a person to pay off the debts from the money that we lent them, for, however we lent them the money? Okay. From 30%, the next tier would be 10%, which is considered to be very much up there. If you're using less than 10% of your total credit line, and again, on any individual card, 9% or lower, they're going to look at that as a big thumbs up, especially if you have the total amount of credit that is above $20,000, $30,000. Some people have $150,000, $200,000 in total credit lines available to them. If you can have that kind of buying power at your disposal and you're not abusing it, you're not going shopping and splurging all the time, then they look at you as somebody who is responsible with their money, responsible with their credit lines, and therefore more likely to pay off any debts that you would incur. Okay? So just kind of keep that in mind. And then the next, the elite tier would be below 3%. Okay? So why is one of the reasons why my credit rating is above 800? And that is because and I'm just going to go through the first two real quick, is that first of all, my on-time payment history is at 100% over 300 months worth of that. And a second reason why I was able how I was able to achieve an over 800 credit rating is because my total amount of debt usage is at 0% right now. I'm at a place where anytime I put anything, and I'm telling you, this is super important, people. Anytime I put something on the credit card is because I know that there is money waiting to pay that bill before the due date or the end of the billing cycle. And one thing that you also should know is be very careful if you want to be as strict with your credit lines as I am. Be careful about making purchases with certain kinds of cards around the end of the billing cycle. And the reason why I'm telling you this is because recently I made a purchase, a very small purchase on one of my credit cards near the end. No, this is actually pretty. It's worse. It was past the end of the uh, of the of the billing cycle, but it was before the report was generated. So I was already into the next month, so I thought I was safe. But they counted the outstanding balance, even though it was pending, pending, pending. They still counted it anyway, even though I paid it on the first day that they allowed me to pay it. So be very, very careful with certain credit cards about using it near the end or just past the end. Wait until the um, the monthly statement has been generated before using that card if you're kind of on the fence. Because what happened to me is, even though that debt wasn't really there, because as the very day that they allowed me to pay it, I paid it. They still reported it to the credit agencies even before they allowed me to pay because it was pending. So be very careful with that. So that's because my total debt that I carry on my revolving credit lines is zero, which is better than, or lower than 3% of my total credit lines. I get a very, very big boost. So that is 65% right there. 100% on time payment history over 300 months straight. Um, and the amount of debt, I went from using a lot to not using so much. Okay. Really not using any at all. Uh, so that's 35 and 30%. That's 65%. Moving on, 15%. Now we're going to get into the stuff that is kind of like the nitpicky stuff. Okay. Length of credit history. Now, this is the only part of my credit that takes a hit, and it's the length of credit history. So, why is the length of credit history a problem? Well, I had no credit whatsoever until age, I want to say, age 28 or 29. I did not get on the credit. I did not get on the whole credit thing until, almost damn near 30 years old. But so here at age 38, the length of my credit history is somewhat short. So what they want to see is a credit length that is somewhere in the neighborhood of 7 to 10 years minimum. Okay. Um, right now, my oldest account is only 6 years and 11 months old. So why is this important? Because it is 15%. A lot of people are going to get close to getting excellent credit, but they're going to fall short because either they don't have enough credit long enough, or they try to apply for too much credit over and over. And we're going to get into some of these other factors. So the length of my credit history, when you add all of them together, is about 4 years and a month. So I don't have the kind of length, that lengthy credit history that they want to see. They want to see that not only are you responsible with your money just today, they want to see a track record. They want to see many months in a row of you dealing responsibly with the money, with your money, and of course, if they're lending you money, with their money. So this is actually tied into the this is tied into the next three because the payment history is 35% of your score, the amount of debt at 30%. But if you add length of credit at 15%, amount of new credit at 10%, and your credit mix at 10%, you add those three together, and that's about a third. That is 35%. And these kind of go hand in hand. So every time you get a new credit line, you are going to take a hit in several different ways. Well, how does that work? Well, so let's say you want this new credit card and you've been doing right. You've got a decent credit score, right? Let's say you have a 740 credit score, which is what a lot of lenders want to see. 740, 750, somewhere in that range. I think you get the absolute best rates across the board with a 760. Okay. Let's say you want to go get it, a new, I don't know, platinum credit card from some company, Capital One platinum card, let's say, right? How is that going to lower your credit score? It's going to hit your credit score. It's going to hit your credit score in two different ways on a negative. One, it is going to be a hard inquiry. And I can tell you from kind of measuring what happens when I get a new credit line, a new inquiry normally costs me about 5 points. So when you apply for that card, even before they decide whether or not they're going to approve you, you're going to lose about 5 points right off the bat. Just for asking for new credit. And then when they do approve you, it is going to show up as a new credit account with a very young age. And then as a triple whammy, it is going to lower the average age of all your credit lines because it's brand new. It's going to show up as this credit line has been open 1 month because after the first billing cycle, that is when the credit reporting agencies will report that you have a new credit line with them. So you're lowering the age of your total credit. You have a new account. And you lose points just for asking for new credit. Does it sound fair? No. But these are ways that your credit score can take hits from just one action. I applied for one credit line. Being approved hurts you, but also not being approved also hurts you. It lowers your score. So be aware of that. Getting into the next one, the amount of new credit. And this goes to the hard inquiry. You want to be very, very, very careful and very methodical about how you deal with this. Credit agencies are looking to see if you're the type of person that's just going to ask for a bunch of credit, because that's usually a sign of desperation. So you want to make sure that you limit the amount of new credit that you ask for within certain terms. Okay? So how does Dr. Evil do this? Well, I asked for a credit line over a year ago, last May, for a product. Okay? The next time that I asked for credit again was the following May. Why is that important? Because you want to leave large gaps of time in between requests for credit. So, avoid trying to open up a bunch of new credit lines grouped together. Avoid that. That is a huge, huge red flag. For all they know, you've got a terminal disease and you just want to splurge on hookers and blow, and you're going to leave this earth and leave them holding the bag. Okay? That's the way they look at it. All right? Next up is credit mix. Okay? If all you got are credit cards, they don't really trust you. And why is this important? Because the real reason to build up a credit score is for the more important things in life. We're talking about auto related stuff. We're talking about housing related stuff. And by housing related stuff, I don't mean just mortgages. I'm all the rental market. Just having a place to live, whether you're renting or buying, they are going to judge you very, very harshly according to your credit score, depending on what it is. So, making sure that you are kind of spreading it around, it is pretty important. So, what did I do? Well, when I had no credit, I knew that in order to build credit, there were two things I was going to need to do. One, a collateralized loan, or what they call a secured loan. Okay? So the premise of the secured loan is that you actually take a sum of money mutually agreed upon, you and the bank. You have that dollar amount. So let's just call it $1,000, right? You take that $1,000 to the bank and you say, I want to get a secured loan. And they'll say, okay, would you like a $1,000 loan? Yes. Okay, we're going to loan you $1,000 of your own money. So you give them the money and then they give it back to you. And then you're supposed to pay it off monthly. The one that I used, they put the money that I gave to them in a CD account. So I really wasn't borrowing their money. I was borrowing my money. And what they're looking to see is if you are going to make the payments faithfully all the way through the end of the term, whatever that term is. The term that I had was 1 year. So I took my money from them and then I put it in my savings account. And then every month, pretty much what I did was I just paid back myself. And then at the end of the term, they gave me back the $1,000 plus the interest from the CD that they placed it in, the certificate of deposit, minus the fee for the loan itself, which was pretty much a wash. It was pretty much, I gave them $1,000, they gave me $1,000, I paid it off, and then they gave me my $1,000 back, and I basically paid a few dollars I basically just paid a few dollars to get a credit score. And the second thing that I did, which I did at almost exactly the same time, is that I got a secured credit card. Well, how does that work? A number, let's call it $500, that you and the bank agree upon. You give the bank the $500. They give you a credit card with a limit of $500. And then they want to see you use that card and pay it, use it and pay it, use it and pay it. And then after a while, they give you an actual credit line and your $500 back. Why is this important? It's important because when you go with a collateralized loan and credit card, it is a signal to the credit bureaus you are intentionally trying to prove to them that you are credit worthy. Well, after I finished the term with the credit card and the loan, I ended up with a 733 credit rating. Why? because I made all the payments on time that they wanted me to during the length of the term. I paid them all in full, and it was two different types of credit lines. There was a secured credit card, and then there was a secured installment loan. So this actually goes to the whole credit mix, which makes up 10%. Well, what kind of credit mix does Dr. Evil have in his history? Well, I'll kind of, let you know what I did. So they want to know if you have like, regular credit cards. They want to know if you have like retail credit lines, mortgages, car, loan type, type of deal, that sort of thing. Okay. So the mix that I ended up running with is I have four regular credit cards. I have three cards that are attached to certain store brands. They're like store credit lines. The guitar, I got one for Guitar Center. I got one for the Sleep Number store. I got one that was kind of attached to the whole trying to, buy an iPhone thing some years ago. Right? I also have two car leases in my history. One I completed successfully already, and two, I'm coming, the second one, I'm coming to near the end of it. I've had four different installment loans, three of which have been completely paid off. Okay. I've got one that's active. So I've got the retail lines. I've got the regular credit cards. I've got the car related stuff. So I've got a decent enough mix. And a lot of people think, oh, getting a luxury car is a bad move, but because I was able to handle a car lease for the first vehicle was an MSRP of $63,000, the Beamer that I had, and the current vehicle, the MSRP was about $65,000. So because of the voodoo that they do, they look at the amount that you're paying, they look at the amount of the total amount of the loan over the term. Even a lease is considered an auto loan, by the way. They're looking to see if you can handle these payments that, are kind of high. So your ability to pay is going to be judged on whether you're paying $150 a month for your car lease versus $700 or $1,000. The person that's paying $1,000 a month for their car lease and paying it on time faithfully every single month, they are going to have more favor in the eyes of lenders than somebody who is, on a $99 a month car lease or whatever. So that also does factor in. They want to see the kind of history that you have with larger ticket items. So they will judge whether, the MSRP was $20,000 or $80,000. They will judge on that. And I will tell you from experience that the age of the credit and the diversity of the credit actually does count, because when I went to go get a financing for my first vehicle, I thought that my 733 credit rating was going to give me preferable treatment in the dealership. But what ends up happening is when they looked at my credit, they say, yeah, your credit is 733. But the problem is that you have a thin credit file. And what that meant was I didn't have a lot of accounts at the time. I think I had like 2 or 3 total accounts on my record. And so my 733 was not weighted or trusted as much as somebody who had a 733 that built credit over 15 years with car leases in their past. So I was not able to get tier 1 credit, even though I had tier 1 credit numbers. So you have to understand that is part of the equation as well. So you want to make sure that you want to make sure that you're very patient with the credit lines that you are asking for. Don't ask for a whole bunch of them at once. Spread them out, and don't close the accounts. Don't close the accounts. If you are, oh my God, I'm so happy I paid off this credit line. I'm going to close. Do not close it, because it will kill your credit rating, simply because you're probably taking one of your oldest credit lines. And not only are you getting rid of a number of accounts, because they do judge you on the number of the accounts that you have, they want you to have, I think, at least 11 active accounts for you to be in the green zone, so to speak. Don't close the account, because when you close the account, the average age of your credit goes down. Your oldest account age comes down. If you cut the oldest credit line, you need to keep these credit lines open just to play the credit game. Super important. What are some of the myths around credit ratings? One of the biggest myths, and I've seen somebody say that, is in order to keep a high credit score, you need to keep a balance on your revolving credit. I'm here to tell you this right fucking now. You do not, I repeat, you do not need to carry a balance on revolving credit lines. You do not need to make sure that there is money owed that you have to pay interest on in order to keep your credit score high. What you need to do is make sure that the lines that you do have, you are making purchases with them on a regular basis. Why? Because you need to be able to show that there is an on-time payment on all of the accounts. If you do not use the card at all, they will not report a payment. And if you go long enough without using the card, the credit card company will close your account on your behalf, and you get fucked that way. You do not have to leave a balance on a revolving credit line. I repeat, you do not. You have to show that you are using your credit. So the caveat to that would be is that you have other different kinds of credit lines that you are paying faithfully every fucking month. So that means if you have a personal loan and you're keeping your credit card balances at zero while actively using the credit cards, it will show that you are responsible and you're using it. And therefore, you'll keep a higher credit score. There is a reason why they reserve like the highest level for less than 3%. And last I checked, zero is less than 3%. You do not need to leave a substantial balance or a balance at all on revolving credit lines. But if you fail to use the lines and you don't have other active credit lines going on, and I'm talking about a car lease, I'm talking about a car loan, I'm talking about a mortgage, right? The student loan type of deal. Although student loans are not weighted the same, medical debts are not weighted the same. They do affect your score, but they're not weighted the same as, the consumer spending. Because that's really what they want to encourage you to do, is to buy a bunch of shit that you don't need. So how does Dr. Evil avoid this? Well, I avoid this by making sure that I put stuff on the card that's like everyday living type shit. I go to the gas station, I got a card for that. I'm paying for on-street parking, I've got a card for that. In-app purchases on a mobile game that I shouldn't be buying, I've got a card for that. Certain bills that I have to pay on a monthly basis, there's a card for that. And I budget, okay, I know that I got to pay Verizon X amount for Fios. I know that I got to pay, this car company this amount of money. I know that I got to pay the insurance with this line here. I got to do this. I got to do that. And I make sure that I spread it around so that the cards are in use But I'm not giving you credit card companies any free money. You do not have to spend a lot of money to get a high credit score. You don't. You don't. Anybody that's telling you that is an idiot because they're paying a lot of money to have the privilege of having a high credit score. Mine, one of the credit agency says my credit score is 807. Another one says 802, and the other one says 816. My FICO is 816, and the two Vantage scores are 5 points apiece. And it's important. Why am I 5 points away? Why am I getting 807 with TransUnion and 802 with Equifax? Well, I just figured it out recently that not all hard inquiries, and there's a difference between hard inquiries and soft inquiries. Soft inquiries would be you checking it. Let's say you download Credit Karma, you download the Experian app, and you're checking on a daily basis a shit ton of soft inquiries. You're not actually looking for any credit. You just kind of want to know what your credit is to make sure that nobody's stealing your identity. Looking at you, T-Mobile, with that fucking breach. You know, you letting people's fucking addresses and phone numbers and IMEIs and social security numbers and addresses. You fucked up, T-Mobile. But I check my credit on a regular basis to make sure that there's no funny business going on, right? But I figured out that when a credit card company or any place that offers financing, they only check one of the three. So you can get lucky to be able to keep a somewhat, you can keep an elevated credit score depending on which credit agency the hard inquiry was reported to. Because these lenders, they're not going to check all three. They're going to check one. So I've got two hard inquiries as far as Experian is concerned. I've got two hard inquiries as far as Equifax is concerned. I've got one hard inquiry on my ledger as far as TransUnion is concerned. So, we don't decide which credit agencies they're going to draw from for the hard inquiry. We don't decide that. But if, you spread it around a little bit, you might be able to kind of bypass that a little bit. Okay? So, don't listen to anybody that tells you that you need to give away free money in interest. You do not have to do that. Just make sure that you're using the credit card on a regular basis. You're paying it off in full. I like to pay it as soon as it posts. And if I can't do that, I try to avoid buying stuff these days. But really what it comes down to is discipline, folks. That's what it comes down to. Can you be disciplined enough to know that you've got buying power, but you understand that you don't actually need to put it into play? You don't need to do so. And what it does is, if you're able to have that kind of discipline, when it's something that you really want, you're a shoo-in. You're a shoo-in to be given really whatever it is you want. You're going to be able to get the approval for the stuff you really want. So for me, my weakness is sneakers. I've got 94 pairs in my collection. There were times where I was ordering 3 or 4 pairs a month, sometimes buying 2 pairs of sneakers at a time. Oh, I like that color or I like that silhouette. I'm just going to go buy it. And I'm dumping it on the credit card or on the credit line. Oh, PayPal let me pay that, interest-free 6 months. I could just dump that on there. I could pay that in 6 months. But when I stopped adding to the collection, I started adding to my credit rating. So I know that what I'm saying is kind of anti-consumer, but think about it. The things you really want to get, the big boy stuff, and let me tell you, folks, I got my eye on a couple of things. Hopefully, these things come to fruition. I can't really talk about it, not on here, but I'm going to be able to have access to what I want because I've exercised the discipline beforehand. And understand something, I didn't always have this discipline. I had, a 630, 640, 650, 660 credit rating not that long ago. But I developed the discipline to pay off a whole lot more than the interest. And I'm telling you, life gets a lot cheaper. You're actually paying yourself when you're avoiding high interest fees. Make sure that you're making every single payment without fail on time. I can't stress that enough. Every single payment. When you're going through hard times, like when the Rona happened, I talked to the credit agencies. I talked to a Mercedes-Benz Financial. I let them know, Leo, the Rona has messed with my ability to earn money. What can you guys do for me? But don't just assume, it's okay. Make sure that if you're having any kind of trouble, because sometimes they will work with you if you're having hardships and they will report on-time payments, even if you haven't made them with the promise that you're going to make them, because they understand that if your credit rating goes down, your ability to do business with them also is impacted. And it's in their best interest to help you out on a limited basis, obviously, but it's in their best interest to help you out if they can. So understand that. I had, the car company, the Mercedes-Benz Financial, I deferred 4 payments. Never reported those 4 payments as being late. But at the beginning of the Rona, we didn't know what was going to happen to our lives at that point. Me being a personal trainer, all the gyms are closed. What am I going to do? Right? But they very graciously allowed me to, defer the 4 payments. And then they slapped me with all 4 of the payments at the same time. Let me tell you, it hurt. Okay? But I was able to make the payment. And as far as they're concerned, all's right with the world. Okay? So, if you don't have credit, secured loan, secured credit card, super duper important, because the older you are without a credit file, the further you're pushing off financial solvency and sovereignty, you're pushing that off into the future because you got to start somewhere. I started late, so even at age 38, there's still parts of the credit rating that I don't have access to right now because I started so late. So get that secured credit card, get that secured loan. It might feel like you're losing money in the here and now, but you're not really losing any money. It's still your money. You just get it after a year or two, or whatever the terms are. Okay? Make sure that you diversify the different types of credit that you go for. And it doesn't mean that you have to charge a whole bunch of crap on it. It could be just as simple as getting a Best Buy card and, charging a pair of headphones on it, or a mouse or a keyboard or something, right? But having different types of credit lines. I have a PayPal credit. I have, the Guitar Center. I have, the Sleep Number, because I wanted one of their beds, and their beds are super fucking expensive, right? And then I've got regular bank credit cards, and then I've got the Apple card, and then, and then I got to also let you guys know that having a charge card doesn't really help your credit rating very much. I found that it basically just hurt my credit rating. So the reason why you want to consider charge cards like American Express is because charge cards don't have a preset credit limit So since the credit limit is not defined, you don't get the benefit of having yet another credit line that lengthens the amount of buying power that you have that they will judge you on. Okay. So I got an Amex earlier this year, and it hurt me because I got a new credit line, but it didn't help me by extending the total buying power across all of my credit lines since it's undefined. It'll help me because it's an account over time. So as you know, if I continue to pay the $695 yearly annual fee, if I continue to keep paying that in perpetuity, then it's going to help me because I have a different type of credit line. And then the age of that will get older. It'll help me that way. But it's not going to expand the total amount of credit that I have at my disposal since it's, I think, theoretically limitless. I mean, if I had a black card, it would be limitless. But, you know, it is what it is. Okay. So make sure that you're making every single payment on time. Make sure that you're spreading it around the different types of credit lines that you have. Make sure that you are keeping the usage below 10%. And if you absolutely must, 30% on each card. Don't think that is like the total of all your credit cards and just using 30% of that, but blowing out one card. Don't do that. Make sure you're spreading the love around across the cards. And if you must leave a balance, you want to be sure that it is less than 10% of that credit line. So if you have $1,000, you want it to be less than $100. If you have a $10,000 card, you want to make sure that the balance is less than $1,000. If you must leave a balance, you just must have this item. I gotta have this for this one particular reason. It's gonna help me make money, or it's gonna help me get some sloppy toppy right here now. And I'm gonna risk it for the biscuit. Make sure it's less than 10%. Don't fuck around with that, because you will take a credit hit even if you're using less than 10% of most of your credit lines, but you're using 50% of one card. Don't do it. But make sure that you get on building your credit as early as possible, because a lot is attached to your credit. The auto insurance rates are attached to credit. Whether or not you get an apartment or have a place to live, the kind of car. Sometimes you are graded on whether or not a company will hire you based upon your credit rating. Because the assumption is that if you really need a job and you've got a really poor credit score, that maybe you might be less trustworthy. Maybe you might steal from the company. That is kind of like the thought, which is kind of, really bogus. But they're going to look for any way to exclude you from succeeding in life and getting the things you want. Make sure that you take it out of their hands. You're exercising discipline. You play the credit game, and you play the credit game as cheaply as you possibly can. Don't take on a bunch of high fee credit cards and leave imbalances. Take on the high fee credit card and then make sure that the balance is zero at the end of the month so they don't get shit. They're still going to turn a profit because they're charging the merchant. Every time you swipe the card, they charge the merchant a certain percentage of the purchase price. So they're already getting money. They don't need to get, anything from you. All right. Americans have really done a really good job during the Rona of cutting down their consumer debt, because of economic uncertainty. And I don't know how long that's going to last, but for me, it's going to last. And I'm hoping for the people that are part of the Talking Shit podcast community that you are also able to resist, blind consumerism and exercise the kind of discipline that we ask you as far as how you deal with women, how you treat your body, and how you chase professional success. All of these things have a unifying thread, and that's discipline. So, in the comments section, I'm going to leave it up to you guys. What do you think of the whole credit system? And if you have been unsuccessful, what's your story? And if you have been successful, what are some of the tips and tricks that you were able to use to keep an elevated credit rating? Until next time, on behalf of the Talking Shit Podcast, Dr. Evil is up out of here. Peace.